Nations Charter, which prohibits one country from interfering or making threats against a citizen of another country. And since Muslims are obligated, so long as they are signatories to that charter, then it represents a violation according also to Islamic law. Thirdly, what you called also the Christian approach of counsel or pastoral, I don't see that even as inconsistent with Islam at all, because even in the case of murtad or the apostate, there is also a rule in Sharia known as istitaba, which literally means to ask the person to repent, but in a way, like scholars elaborate, talking to the person, see whether he had some doubt, what reason behind that, and allow the person some time to, recant or reconsider their position. But I fully agree with you that the way it was handled was very poorly, but some of the things that the Western people perhaps may not appreciate is that a lot of Muslim people, Muslim masses, especially I underline, in the Indo-Pakistani subcontinent, and those who come from that area realize it, are extremely, extremely emotional. Extremely. In a way that sometimes leads to very irrational behavior. To give you one example, I was told by a Muslim from India, he said that some of the Hindu who one day wanted to stimulate riots, and knowing the emotionality of Muslims, what they do is to come when Muslims are doing Jum'ah prayer, the Friday congregational prayer, and then deliberately push a pig or dog inside the mosque. Well, it is bad. It is desecration. But if I were there, I would quietly take him out and continue my khutbah, continue my prayer. But the mentality of uneducated people who are so emotional, intense, that this would be enough to go out and a big riot start and lots of loss of life take place, which is totally contrary to the whole objective of Sharia. So I think this is one element to help us also evaluate the kind of responses, which is sometimes overly emotional.
With your kindly permission from both sides, I'll have to keep going because, believe it or not, I took 15 minutes over my 40 minutes. So probably the organizer here is going to shoot me as I'm standing. Gentlemen, we have here another 40 minutes, and it's going to be 40 minutes for the discussion, for input and critique review of the points raised from both sides. I have from the Christian point, Dr. Dale Bishop, and I'll introduce him later, and Dr. Lois Elizabeth. And from the Muslim side, discussing panel will consist of Brother Muhammad Sadiq and Dr. Hussein Morsi. So please approach us, sit right beside us, give us your points.
There's room for them, or there's enough?
No, there is more chairs in there to do that. As they are coming, I'll just explain what's going to happen after 40 minutes. After the 40 minutes of the discussion...
It's not going to be 40 minutes because we're running out of time.
Okay. The discussion part of today's event is going to be 20 minutes instead of 40. After that, we'll go to the audience reactions and questions, and you're going to have the microphone right there. I'm going to start with, as long as we have two people here, we still don't have the second one. I'll start with the Muslim side. Yes, I'll take that. One here, one there.
I heard quite a bit of emphasis on the issue of Salman Rushdie, and I do not want to beat a dead horse. I know that this subject had been emphasized and had been dealt with, but I'd like to hear from your side, what do you think of the Catholic Church when it condemned Galileo for even a scientific fact? And today, an apology had been issued to Galileo. It seems that there is emphasis on the emotionalism, at least Salman Rushdie is still alive and Galileo is dead. It seems to me that there is considerable emphasis on the reaction of the Muslims when something goes wrong, and there is an attempt to ignore the history of the church, the Inquisition, the killing of the people, the destruction of the people, and even the persecution of the Protestants. by the Catholic Church. And I would like to hear some comments about that, if you would, please.
I'm sorry, I'm in the way.
I'm sorry, I was a little distracted, and I'm also not a Catholic, so I'm a little reluctant to answer on behalf of the Catholic Church. And
It's not necessarily that the panelist is the one who has to answer the question.
Okay.
It can be the two gentlemen, the panelists themselves. It's not necessarily that the question has to be directed to the other side discussing.
Well, since it was addressed to the Catholic, and I believe I'm the only Catholic, I would say, well, first of all, I certainly don't want to equate Galileo and Salman Rushdie. I mean, I think Galileo did something extremely important for humankind. He did not deserve the condemnation he received, and thank God the Church finally saw that. I certainly share with my colleague James Shearer apprehension about the way Rushdie was criticized and the death threat put on his life, but I don't think he offered humanity all that much in terms of lasting contribution. So I wouldn't want to equate them. I think that it's sad that these sorts of things happen, but hopefully we've moved out of that kind of era. The Protestant Catholic thing, I mean, religious strife has been an integral part, I think, of religious history probably from day one. I mean, it certainly has affected Catholic-Protestant relationships, but it's also affected many other relationships. I would hope that the various efforts like this and like similar efforts going on all over that bring together Christians, that bring together Christians and Jews, that bring together Christian Jews and Muslims, that bring together Hindus and Muslims, that bring together Hindus and Christians, whatever, will help to alleviate and finally bring to an end. I think we're seeing some effort in that, although we're also seeing some intensification of religious strife. But you have, as was said earlier, one has to be careful of over easily identifying things as religious strife. For example, I happen to be fairly close to the situation in Northern Ireland, and oftentimes that is spoken of as a religious conflict. Well, I think religion plays some role, but it's not the prime generator of the conflict. The conflict has to be understood in economic ways, in political ways, in cultural ways. And then after you say that, then I think you can bring in some of the religious factors. So I think that we're moving beyond it, and certainly it seems to me the Catholic Church today, at least officially, is certainly committed to improve relationships with other Christian communities and with members of the greater world of religious people, and I think is also moving to implement that commitment through in various ways, through conferences, through dialogues, through changing educational materials, and so on.
So if you bring points like that, like Salman Rushdie or reaction of the Muslims to my attention, and I as a Muslim say, hey, wait a minute, you have similar atrocities, or actually much more atrocities in the history of the Church, and before you come and point a finger at me, look at your own history and look at the way you handled the human rights, look at the involvement of the Church in politics, in abusing the human rights, in everything else. Do you think I would be justified in this approach?
If I may interject for a second, just in fairness, as I feel towards our Christian brethren, I did not get the impression that when casually the mention of Salman Rushdie came, that it was intended really as pointing fingers. I'm very happy with the spirit of the dialogue that's going on and the kind of mutual courtesy shown, even though everybody's telling the truth. But I didn't really see it as pointing fingers. And quite frankly, I don't think really we need to be overly defensive or trying, like I said several times, always to try to point out what was wrong with this and that, and still boils down again to what are we talking about? The faith